Hello, Education 523. Hope you're having a good week. One, I want to apologize. I'm actually recording this a little later on the weekend than I normally do. Usually I try to do it late week or early morning Saturday. I know I did. I sent an announcement. I was at Social Studies Fair yesterday. So um, judging, and then I also had a child there, so I was out at the award ceremony. So apologies. I'd like to open things up a little early for everyone, but the action plan is really the primary assignment. And I know we went over that last week. I had this a little bit in mind that this might happen, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at that. I will also keep last week's materials open this week. I think I had the Wakelet open the week before, or I should have. Um, in case anyone has to jump back, the action plan description is in last week's lesson, and feel free to jump around. It's towards the end, I believe. And there, I think, is a pretty sound description that's posted on there. So, action plan is due this week. And as you can see, I have the syllabus already pulled up. That's the big thing. Take your time. And if I know everyone's busy, and if you get in a time crunch, just email me. I don't mind giving in a couple days extra if we need to. I know everyone's very busy. It's getting to be crunch time. I know with the end of the class, unbelievable. And also just life in general. So, with that being said, there's a few things we're going to do a little bit of a slight turn these last couple weeks. I don't even know if I've really mentioned this when I've been like talking on these videos or anything like that. But when I kind of approach this class, everyone in here I know is an educator or is becoming an educator, and some of the stuff I kind of always try to think of what are things that you can do to employ in your classroom to maybe if you want to change things up or maybe try some new ideas. That's kind of how I do it. I kind of try to think of it as a methods type approach. Not saying you will, not saying you won't, but that's how I think about it. So, one thing, just to kind of give you a little introduction, we're switching this up a little bit. Flat World Education did a lot of comparisons with other countries, and I was really trying to hold off until we got to this to get into that too much. Um, but obviously, the second reading in this class is Finnish lessons, and I always his name, the way it looks and how it's said, are two different things. I believe it has Swedish roots. I believe it's Pasi Salbe. It looks like Berg to me, but I believe it's Salbe. At least that's how Google translates, or Google kind of put it out there. So we'll go with that. Um, but anyway, um, we're going to look at Finnish Lessons 3.0. I will say there's two prior editions, obviously. This is the most recent, and it actually talks a little bit about the post-pandemic world. And I wanted something a little more. I liked Flat World Education a lot. I think it has a lot of things that apply, but I also wanted something that's obviously more modern. That book is a little older than this book, obviously, and of course, a lot has changed in the last couple of years in education. So I like this. I like the prior edition a lot. And also, there's been some changes in the Finnish approach to education. I don't know how long everyone's been teaching or how much you're into this, but for especially during the Obama administration, when a lot of things with education were being reexamined, as talked about in the last book, Finland came up a lot. And one reason why is their students were testing compared to other nations, they were testing through the roof, especially in math and science and things like that. So everyone's like, "Whoa, what is going on with Finland?" So there's been a lot of works, there's been a lot of writings on the Finnish approaches to schooling. He gets into a lot of the history. I'm going to try, as a social studies person, I'm going to resist the urge to go too much down the history route. But I will just say, really, in the 1970s, they did a whole revamp of their education system. And a lot of this stuff seems to work. Um, Now, I will say this, we're going to look at a comparison just because I think it's important between the United States and Finland on some things. But what I want to say about this, as I've been mumbling through, as I was saying, I want you to take things away. I'm not going to say everything that Finland does would apply to your classroom, but maybe there's something that you can see in these approaches as far as diversity, multicultural education, or just general practices that you might be able to employ. I talked to someone, I won't say who, it was a principal actually, though, and now it's in Berkeley County. At the time, I don't know if they were in Berkeley County, but they actually did a trip to Finland. And one thing that they came back and saw was is they had extended what they call it playtime, but recess time. She was able to get that employed in her school where the students would get like an extra 15, 20 minutes. And they did notice a change in behavior and focus type things. And that's something Finland is very much into the concept of play and not burning students out during the school day. That's just an example. Maybe there's something here you can pull out. I will say this also before I dive into everything. Post pandemic, I was mentioning how, like in the early 2000s to 2010s, everyone was like, whoa, Finland is blowing us away. Why are they so awesome? They have come down a little bit on some of their scoring in recent years, where like before they were like number one in reading, number one in math in the world. Now they've been dropping down pretty steadily, not like a free fall or anything like that. So there's some examinations about why that might be. So, and of course, also another thing, what works for Finland might not work for us. But I'm a fan. I'm not going to lie. So, with that all being said, I kind of babbled through that. I do want to kind of just do a country comparison. Nothing fancy here. This was actually a Google search, but I think it's just important that we keep a few things in mind. When we're talking about Finland, we're talking about a small Northern European country. It's not, as you can see, not remotely the size of the United States in terms of land. It's also not even remotely close to West Virginia, the United States in terms of population. We have 330 million people. They have slightly less than 6 million. And the reason why I almost did that Freudian slip there with West Virginia, I guess that would be a Freudian slip, maybe not, who knows. But anyway, one reason why I kind of did that, West Virginia has slightly less than 2 million people. So you figure you have three West Virginian, well, maybe even just 2.5 West Virginias equal one Finland, where the United States has 331 million people. It's just a much larger system. And we're going to talk about that because Finland has a national system of education and a national curriculum. Also, I mean, since this is on there, I'll go through, but as you can see, there's a lot of different things related to birth rate, death rate. I will point out one thing, and Finland feels like this is important to their educational system. They have a motto, and actually I'm going to put an article up. Actually, Solvay is actually quoted, and it's from Smithsonian Magazine. It's from 2011 or 2012. But when the height of all this hype went on, they had a slogan like "whatever it takes." I think that was an Avengers Endgame, but they say whatever it takes. They give the teachers the freedom to kind of do whatever they think works in the classroom, but they also feel like they need to the government needs to assist in meeting those needs. And a lot of that actually comes back to this. They feel like they need to have a healthcare system where students aren't worried about that. Their students are healthy, they're fed, et cetera, et cetera. Things that kind of can fall into that, I think, some of the cracks in West Virginia and the United States as a whole. Sorry, I'm very much on a West Virginia kick after working with the county over some stuff over the weekend. But as you can see, I mean, their life expectancy is 5 years more than us. And some people would say that relates to their healthcare system. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I know a little bit about political science, but I don't want to delve into those realms too much. And as you can see, though, they also have an older population. And I don't know if it's down on this one or not. They also, the mother's birth age is usually a little higher in Finland than it is in the United States too. So some people think maybe the parents being a little older, maybe a little more settled, might have some things to do with it. Anyway, those are some numbers. Also, if you look down here, this is going to fall into maybe what some people think are I don't want to get too far down the road yet, but if you look popularity on this chart, I actually did read a little bit about this. These are like how many people are moving into the country. Finland is moving up, and their population is starting to become more diverse. And I'm going to show you another graphic here in a minute about comparing the diversity. Some people, especially, I don't want to call them critics, just people who say, well, maybe it's not a fair comparison to compare the United States education system to Finland. Finland had a very homogenous, basically Finnish population, and it's starting to become now more diverse. I'm sure everyone's seen on the news, there's a lot more. There was a whole flood of immigrants that have been coming into Europe or have been coming into Europe. And it's changing some of the socioeconomic type things in the cities. That's a whole other discussion. Some of that might not be, there's been resistance to that. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the population is changing. And some people wonder if that's contributing a little bit to maybe they're having to meet different needs now than what they're used to in terms of education. I don't know. It's something to look at, and we can definitely discuss it. Um, I think that was kind of the major things on there. And actually, just so it's not showing there, I'm going to get rid of these two. Also, just wanted to show you this since I mentioned it. This is the different ethnic groups that are located in the two countries. And as you can see, even today, Finland, those are all still mostly Northern European countries. So the diversity and the immigration in the country are it's just not as diverse as the United States. So I think that is something to keep in mind, especially because, like I say, critics of the system or of the comparisons will make that. I will say this one thing in the sweet, I almost said Swedish, in Finnish defense. It is, like I say, it's expanding. They've been taking in a lot, I believe, Somali immigrants, and I think even some people from the Iraq have moved in there in recent years. So again, it's expanding, and he talks about this in the book. So I think this is all just important background information that we should be able to look at. Enough with that. Let's actually talk about some education. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tirade there, but I want to pull up some things. And like I say, I always try not to get too bogged down because I know we're actually an asynchronous class. But I was just writing down some notes as I was going through. And I think it's some things that we're definitely going to want to look at. And I actually mentioned the 10 notions on the syllabus. I do want to kind of highlight those because that's going to be the discussion board for this week. And I really want to do a deep dive next week as we've kind of gotten through the book a little bit more. But some of the things Solveig is going to talk about, I really wanted to highlight the special needs aspect and the Finnish approach to it. I will say this: I think it's something that can transcend our U.S. schools very easily. It's just it almost seemed like when you read it, it's almost more of a mindset than a policy type thing in some regards. I'm not saying some of it is a policy, but it's just changing the way people think about it, and that could be the people who make the policy. But the main thing that Finland shoots for with in terms of all of their students is inclusion. That's the primary goal. That's if you take nothing away from it, they are very much into inclusion of all students. Um, I put it on here. I read it. I don't know if Solveig says it in here or I was reading it in another article by him, but I do know the term special needs does not even appear in any Finnish education legislature. They want all students. That's like a microcosm of our population. They also have 3 tiers of support, which I don't think was too outrageous or too different from what we have here in West Virginia or the United States as a whole. They have general, intensified, and special support, and just have a little uniformity there. And I will also say this is more for the class as a whole. Maybe there's something that the students aren't grasping. So, and I think a lot of teachers do this just as a best practice. If it seems like a large percentage aren't grasping something, maybe this the teacher has to do some sort of class accommodation, so to speak. Maybe it's a word bank or something. I'm really doing base level stuff there, but I think you get the point. Of course, there's intensified. The way I've read that, that would be kind of something similar to what our maybe it's a student that would have what we would call an IEP, and then there's special support with students who really have maybe they need whether it might be physical or some other type of support. It's kind of there's something severe that they have to address, but those students are still part of the class and they are not removed from classrooms. Where, like, I was just thinking, or maybe we have students who have to work on pronunciations or some sort of language skills or something like that. A lot of times we'll pull them out of the class here in the US or West Virginia just to work. It seems like a good idea, less distractions. It's not usually done in Finland. It's done in the class. Now they might be in the group and working with someone in the class, but they are not removed from the class. That's just some different approaches. Like I say, and I know some schools have started to kind of implement this a lot more. So something that Finland has done, and I think it has Finnish roots, so to speak. Care and play are major parts of their special needs policies also. And what I mean by that, care, especially for the younger ones, it's just sometimes you might just have to do something where you ask, how are you doing? give someone a hug, something like that, just to show that you're there. But the play is the big one. And actually, I'll show you this in a few moments. I'm not going to play it because of YouTube policy, but I put a link up. I'm going to put it on the discussion board too. It's about 9 minutes long. It's from a documentary. I'll give you a little, I don't know everyone's political allegiances or anything like that. Don't want to know. But it's by Michael Moore. And if I don't know if people are Michael Moore fans or if you even know who he is. The documentary, the clip is spot on what we need. It doesn't really get too political, I don't feel. So it's just a little background on the Finnish education system. And the reason why I have it up there, that one thing they talk a lot about is play, where the students aren't in the classrooms for like 7 straight hours. They have longer recesses. Teachers actually teach less hours in Finland um, during the school day, and they feel like the students have to get out there. I forget the number because I jotted it down and I didn't bring my notebook up. I've watched the video a million times though, where the actual instruction in like K and first, what we would consider for K and first grade is there's not a lot of instructional hours going on. I think it's less than 3 or 4 hours a day. A lot of it is just about movement, climbing, doing stuff, being creative. And again, I mentioned this, they have that idea of whatever it takes. So if you have a student who has special needs, they're going to make sure they're going to do whatever they need to make sure that that student succeeds. Um, and there's a team, usually when there's a meetings with anyone that has special needs, it includes social workers, school nurse, administrators, things like that. So it's that whatever it takes mentality. Um, and I'm not saying teachers here don't have that. It's more of a mindset there across the board. And I don't have it down here, so I'll just kind of throw this out here. Also, most of the time when you're in the field of teaching, you're not worried about being an administrator. Teachers usually just stay in teaching. So there's not like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not something that's stressed, I guess, so to speak. So teachers usually have a good feel for students in their classes. Sure, you do too. And a lot of times, Finland actually gives them a lot of autonomy to let teachers do what they need to do because they know the students in the class better. Hopefully, I know that was a mouthful, but hopefully you kind of get what I was saying. Teacher training, Flat World talks a lot about this, and I think she got into it a lot even with Finland, but I'm just going to hammer it home just really quickly. He talks about it in the book too. It's a big thing, and I think it is an important thing. Um, but Finland has practice schools that are connected to universities. This was something we had. It was kind of common in the U.S. for a long time, and I'm sure there are still universities that do it. Even Shepherd, until fairly recently, they had the pre-K. That was a lot of students went over and did hours over there. I know I was a Shepherd student way back in the '90s, and it was there. You'd see students out running around. I taught at Frostburg for a while. There was a school that was associated with Frostburg State University. I think it was a K-8 school for a long time. It's not there anymore. Um, but they have practice schools connected to universities, so students can go out and people training or practicing or educating themselves to be teachers can go out and practice theory, see what works, what doesn't, and kind of get used to being observed and discuss issues and work within a school setting. I think it's actually awesome. Also, teacher training, you have to be accepted to teacher training schools. I have to admit, European models of education get a little squirrely. I do know, I believe all Finnish teachers have to have a master's degree, but you have to apply and be accepted into a teacher training program. I rounded these numbers, but 7% of applicants are accepted into teacher training schools. That's pretty crazy because it's 8% there for law school and it's 7% for medical. And I'm actually going to say that it's actually the last thing I saw, it was actually harder to get into the teaching programs because it was 6.8, I believe, were accepted, where in medical school it was like 7.1. So I just rounded. What I'm saying is teaching is a profession that is taken very seriously, and you have to have a lot of backgrounds, and you have to have your ducks in a row to apply. It's like applying to law school or medical school. And the other thing with teacher training, once you're in it, you're trusted. I have it down here, but they do have a national curriculum with foundational goals in Finland. The thing about that, it's just foundational goals. Teachers are trusted because they went through this whole process, a very detailed one, to teach materials how they want. They can use the materials they want. They can use the methodology they want. They can use all that, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that they have the foundational goals. they have to meet, and how they meet them is up to them. Um, I mentioned that. Uh, Diversity of populations. There's a few things, and actually, there's something related to that in the video too. I do, and I mentioned this. It's still a homogenous population in Finland, but it is changing. I know I mucked through that a little bit at the beginning, but it's something that people are starting to look at, and if there's going to be any changes, not because it's not good that there's diversity. I need to make that clear, and it's not something that Finland isn't welcoming. It's just I think it changes some of the dynamics as far as just the culture and things like that. And again, not a bad thing. It's just like here you have people who resist things like that, and it's caused a little more unsettling as far as numbers and such. But that might not be, a bad thing that students are being exposed to more people from around the world. It's actually not a bad thing. So also wanted to highlight Finland actually spends less per student on average than the United States does. And again, I'll look the numbers. Maybe I'll fire them out. I don't have them right on top. But they're always still in the top 10 as far as like math and reading and such. We're not usually up there, especially in math. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. Um, you don't start school until you're 7, also in Finland. That's a different, I think a lot of times people feel, well, the Finnish population feels like students need that home time, and it just gives students a little more time to mature before they start. Where I think here we seem to be starting earlier and earlier. I guess there's pros and cons to both. Um, I have to admit, I kind of think I like the older model better because I just think I think students are just they're more mature. I think they're ready. I mean, I think even the parents are more ready at that age than they are maybe when they're younger. I know there are a lot of dynamics that kind of alter um, why we start maybe earlier. Could be work, finances, things like that. Um, but I did want to make the point that students usually start at 7. I mentioned less class hours. Also, I can't ever remember if this is mentioned. I think it is in the book. They also really don't do a lot of sports associated with schools. That's a European thing. They have a lot of clubs and things like that, but a lot of funding and all is not put towards like school. Like we're here, and I'm not, again, as someone who played sports, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. My son's getting ready to go into high school. I want him to play a couple things. But I do think it's interesting where like instead of spending $1 million on field turf for a football field, you would maybe put that money towards materials, new classrooms if you have trailers out back that you have to use and things like that. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on that one a little bit, but also I'm done school. So I kind of in some ways think it's not a bad thing. And I do know some counties in other places. I was reading something in Ohio where football is big in Ohio. I'm sure a lot of you know. And some counties have actually gotten rid of football because honestly, it costs a lot of money, and they feel like they can put their um, funds in other things. But that being said, you can also make the argument that that's a cultural thing and it builds community and things like that. So again, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know where I've kind of been starting to lean a little bit, but it's not to indoctrinate anyone. That's just my own personal opinion. And I kind of sometimes do wonder if what's the saying, the tail doesn't wag the dog. So anyway, that's just kind of an overview. And he's going to talk about that in chapter 1. Also, I didn't list them. I'm going to try to summarize these a little bit, but on our discussion board, I'm going to have you kind of look at Solvay has something called the 10 notions, things that he talks about in this book. And some of the things that he's going to talk about are, I'm going to try not to read word for word, but I got my book right next to you. One thing he's going to talk about is that Finland has an education system in which young people learn well and more performance differences among schools are small. And they're going to talk about that because there's not a lot of private schools in Finland, and all at a reasonable cost and human effort. He put two, that has not always been. They had to do a lot of reflective teaching and modify some stuff. In Finland, I've already highlighted this. Teaching is a prestigious profession. A lot of people aspire to be teachers there instead of like begging teachers to come to counties and schools. And if you're in a county, I'm sure, especially some of our local counties where they need teachers really bad, that does not happen in Finland. They have almost I don't want to say a surplus, but they have a sound pipeline, so to speak. They have a very challenging and competitive academic teacher education system. So they put out very polished teachers right off the top. Again, that's mentioned on there. Um, a lot of these have come from the 70s. He's going to talk about that. Um, After 9 years, I do want to read this one a little more word for word, but after 9 years of comprehensive basic education, Finnish students have two um, basic tracks. I hate to use that word, but attractive and educationally purposeful, I think is his words here, pathways or vocational way. So basically, what I'm saying is after 9 years, you basically go a vocational path or you go an academic path. And I need to highlight this. This is neither one is seen as the lesser of the two. You're going to be very good at what you do, whatever path you go. So if you go the vocational path, you may work in welding. You're going to have so many. When you get done, that's what you're going to focus on, and you're going to be the best darn welder that you know that you can be. And if you go the academic path, it's going to be rigorous. You're going to learn languages and things like that. Um, I don't know. I mean, I know we have paths and vocational things. I'm going to tread softly here, especially as my parents did more of a vocational path. I think sometimes schools don't stress those enough, and I hope I'm not broad stroking a little bit, but I don't want to say we look down on those fields, but I think we definitely, um, I think we should pump them up a little bit more, and I think Finland does that, and that's actually the sixth one notion that he has listed, and I think we should do that a little more here. Um, I mentioned special education, but he's going to talk about a little bit about that, and especially the concept of inclusion. Um, Teachers teach less hours and less money is spent. He's going to talk about that, and he's going to talk about why that works in Finland. Also, he's going to talk about, again, I'm going to word this a little bit just straight from the book, but he says all the factors that are behind Finnish success seem to be the opposite of what is taking place in the United States and much of the world, where he's going to talk about this standard-based testing, and they try not to do that as much in Finland. They do have them. Some people say they don't do any testing. They do. It's just not to the extent that we do here in the United States and other places in the world. Um, and also, he talks about Finnish flexibility. That's kind of the 10th notion I'm summarizing here. But if things don't go as planned, uh, if things start to decline, they have a team and they start to bring in teachers, administrators, and again, very teacher driven though, teachers and all groups that are involved with students, and they try to work out a plan. It's not kind of a top down. It's just I don't even say bottom up. It's just a team effort. So those are the 10 notions. You're going to have a discussion post related to that. No, I said discussion post. There's no discussion post. There's going to be actually something related to that on with the Padlet I wanted to talk about. Sorry. Long week. I hope anyone didn't have a heart attack when I said that. All right. That was a long-winded discussion. This is the intro to the book. Please check it out. Hopefully I didn't get too far off. Sorry, those are some history bowl facts of my sons. All right. Anything else I wanted to highlight here, just to make sure we're on the same page? The 10 notions I just kind of went through. Again, I feel like I've gotten a little long here. I'm trying to cover a lot in a short amount of time for an asynchronous class. I will tell you this. I'm going to go ahead and click here. I could talk about this. This is one reason I wish we were live in a lot of ways. I'll have this posted, obviously. I still have the Wakelet posted in case you need it. I promised to have those graded by Monday. Of course, yesterday I got a little behind, and during the week it was a little busy with some observations. Won't lie, I'm going to a Super Bowl party tonight, but I promise I will probably have them done by Monday. And the action plan is here. As always, you are welcome to email me anytime or come by my office, or if you need me to call you, just let me know. I will talk a little bit about the Padlet next week. Right now, I just want you to focus on the action plan. The Padlet should not be, it's nothing complex. It's going to relate to the readings that do with the Finnish education system and such. It's going to be a little bit of a compare and contrast type exercise. I do apologize also for saying discussion posts. I forgot I didn't put one up with the 10 notions, and I did that last week. I don't know. I really want to give you all another discussion post, and I'm trying not to overkill you, try not to kill you with work with this being a condensed class. I feel like the action plan is more than enough this week. That should be your focus. I'd rather you concentrate on that than anything. But please check out Finnish lessons. It has a lot of cool stuff, and we'll do something with that next week. with all that being said, I hope everyone's hanging in there, having a good week, enjoying the weather a little bit. I know you're busy. So, with all that being said, thank you very much. And I will talk to everyone later. I think I showed everyone this. Oh, I will say this. Here is the article. I'll put this up. This was one that talks a little bit. This was during the Obama years about why Finnish schools are so successful. If you want to check it out, and also um, Finnish education overview. That's a YouTube link. I'll have a little description down there. That's the Michael Moore one. It's only 9 minutes long. I think it's very good. I think it talks about like it just gets into the heart of some stuff. Um, you know, sorry, I can't help it. There's one lady who actually I think kind of hits the heart of the argument with this. She actually says they asked her, they were like, do you think every student will succeed when they're in a classroom in the United States? And she's a former US teacher. And she says no. And it's, I guess we can turn that around, but she feels like the system doesn't work for a lot of the students. And that's something that they talk about a little bit too. For 9, 10 minutes, it's a pretty I'll use powerful. It's a very eye-opening, might be a better way, description of some stuff. So with that being said, I am out of here. Sorry if I was babbling too much. Hope everyone's having a good week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.